Hi there.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you.
You too, Robin. How's it going?
Oh, great. Thank you so much for doing this. This means so much to me, and it's going to mean
Not
so
at
much
all.
to the musicians. And I just think it's really important, if I can, to reach out to the composers and make some connection with, why you compose and what your music is all about. And anyway, I'm just very excited. Thank you so much.
Great. Lovely to meet you.
And I guess I'll start with about your education. And
Yep.
you looks like you were born in London and you studied at Oxford University,
Yep.
and that you are a freelance composer and arranger and conductor. And you have been awarded prizes. I got the list here. Bulgaria, Canada, Croatia, New Zealand, Poland, Russia, Spain, Switzerland, the UK, and the USA.
Yeah. I mean, what I've done basically over my career is go in for every composing competition I can find, and just by the law of averages, do you know what I mean? You're not going to win all of them, but you're bound to win one or two. So over the years, I've kind of collected them.
Well, congratulations
Yeah.
for that's quite an achievement, and I was really fascinated by the combination of the things that you choose to compose, and you do a lot of arranging,
Yeah.
which is it just seemed really fascinating, and yet your choral music is exquisite, and it has like another voice. It has a different voice, and each one are just so dramatic. And then you have musical theater, and there's this other very creative combination of another voice. And oh my gosh, there was the one with oh, the dog and the cat. Oh
Oh,
my God,
right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have to do that. I have to do that. It is just fabulous. Um, and then I don't know. We're all so excited about your "The Isle is Full of Noises." But anyway, I will get on with my questions.
Sure
Uh,
thing.
but welcome, and thank you so much for agreeing to do this. And I wanted to ask you, what are your earliest memories as a musician?
When I mean, I got into music by doing two things early on, and this was when I was about 8 or 9. So I didn't start, particularly early in music. Um, but I remember I really wanted to play piano, and we didn't have a piano in the house, and I wasn't really from a family of people that played music. Um, so I just nagged my parents, and after a while, they did give in, and they bought a second-hand piano from the church hall that was chucking one out. So I'm forever grateful that they gave into that kind of nagging. And I don't know why it was. I mean, I must have seen someone play the piano somewhere. Maybe it was at school, maybe it was on TV, maybe it was live. I honestly can't remember. My dad was a great sort of. He really enjoyed classical music as a listener, so he had quite a record collection. So I suppose we were listening to music and singing songs around the house, but it was all quite informal. And then around the same time, I think it was slightly after. I can't remember now. Around the same time, I had a friend at school who sang in the local church choir, and this was in the olden days when it was a boys' choir, and we earned pocket money for singing at weddings. So that was a real attractive thing when you're when you're still in primary school and you actually earn money on a Saturday. So I went along to join in the local church choir. So my background was as playing piano, then later organ, and then singing in the choir, and then later conducting choirs.
Excellent, excellent. And how would you describe your musical education?
I think it's I think what I've learned is I think I probably learned more slightly outside the sort of formal educational path than within it in a way, because when I was at high school, so I mean I was studying music at school, but actually I was doing most of my music making outside school. You know, in the church choir, I was involved in the local youth theatre. I think you've mentioned musicals already. I love musicals. We did West Side Story, and I wrote a musical when I was 16, and they put that on, and so I was what I've picked up is a lot of informal mentors. I think, you know, the conductors or the music leaders that were leading these groups, who were just really encouraging to. I guess they could see how keen I was, and they gave me lots and lots of opportunities. And that carried on actually in university as well. I did a music degree, which was really great, and I'm very pleased I did it. But it was a very sort of musicological kind of study. You know, it's basically you sat in the library reading books about music and studying music harmony. It wasn't very practical in terms of putting on concerts and learning to play instruments or to sing. But while I was at university, I just got involved with every musical group I could find, you know, again, sort of music drama groups, and putting on recitals with fellow students. So that's, you know, that kind of practical experience, I think, has taught me most. And then when I started work as a musician, I did want to carry on studying, you know, so I went for a few one-off lessons with conductors and with composers. But actually, I found you learn most. I've learned most just by doing it. You go to a rehearsal, you go to a concert, you see a great musician work, you think, wow, and you work out why that worked. What were they saying to their orchestra or to their singers or to their audience? You know, that really got people involved. So it's kind of learning as you go along, really.
Wonderful. And uh, what inspires you to compose?
I think honestly, I've got to say it's mostly words, because most of what I write is choral and vocal music. So you're almost always starting with the text. So every time I read a text or come across some words, I'm without, you know, I don't even have to think about it. I'm already kind of in my mind, you know, going through musical ideas for it. I have written instrumental pieces, but actually, I do find that harder, because you are starting with just a completely blank sheet of paper. You think, well, you know, there are too many choices, right? So if you've got words, then you've got something to bounce off. You know, you've already got something there. So it's kind of reacting to something that already exists, which is very much like what you do when you're an arranger, rather than sort of coming up with an idea completely out of the blue.
It's wonderful. And so yeah, that relationship between your arranging and the composing is really fascinating. I can only hear it. And you just gave a little snippet of explanation, which is lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I always think in the way I work, and maybe it's not the same for everybody's. I can't tell the difference between arranging and composing, because all you're doing when you're composing is you're arranging your own tune or your own idea or your own concept. And when you're arranging, you're just starting with given material. But the process is the same. You're developing you know, you're taking a tune for a walk is quite a nice phrase, isn't it? Apparently the artist Paul Klee said a painting is, or drawing is, taking a line for a walk. And, you know, making an arrangement is taking a tune for a walk. You just kind of see where it goes.
Well, I noticed in many of your arrangements, and some of the melodies I was familiar with it, but what you did with it was there was just something that just really grabbed me. That was completely unique, that I'd never heard, like a new composition. So I think that really fits. But yeah, I was fascinated with your arranging and how you would take something that was very familiar, and then I just couldn't stop thinking about it because it was so beautiful. So there are these little places. So it's anyway, I was fascinated. So yeah, thank you for bringing a ranger.
Well, thank you for your very generous comments. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm looking to do something with the given material, and also kind of being aware of what arrangements or what ways music has been treated in the past. And sometimes it can be quite illuminating to take existing music and then do something very different with it. Just to take it maybe out of what is its expected context.
Yeah, yeah, and then yes, I hear that. Uh, and then what what is your compositional process? How do you compose?
Um, it's I try to make myself approach it in sort of in different ways, just so I don't get too stuck in. I'm always worried. I don't know whether all writers are about sort of getting stuck in a rut and just sort of doing the same things over and over again just because they're comfortable and you kind of know they work. So I try to make sure that sometimes I'm kind of working through ideas at the piano. Sometimes I'm singing them through out loud. Sometimes I'm just kind of working them out on my head. Sometimes I'm sketching them out, um, pencil and paper. And I always start by writing things out by hand. And when I've got kind of enough material that I think I've got a pretty good idea of the overall shape of the piece, that's when I start to type it into the computer and use the MIDI, which is a very good tool. But I would never start that way because I think you have to keep lots of options open at the first stage, because sometimes you start off thinking, oh, this is it's going to be this long, it's going to be in this style, it's going to be for these forces, and once you get stuck in, the piece actually takes you somewhere else and thinks, no, I think it's going to be much better if this was much more extended or maybe much simpler.
Well, that's actually is exactly was my response. Your choral music, it's all it definitely sounds like you, but they're all very different, and I wouldn't. There's no way that you could be put in a rut.
Good. Well, that is, it's nice to know that might have succeeded in a small way.
Yeah, there's very clear picture of what you're experiencing, and it sounds like you do um, some kind of like improvising in your head and singing out loud, improvising on the piano, or is it?
Mm, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sometimes it is just like I say, you take the music for a walk, and improvising is good. Improvising within certain constraints is good as well. It could be within a fixed tempo, or even sort of doing tricks like trying to avoid using a certain note or using a certain chord. Not because there's anything wrong with that note or that chord, but if that's always the obvious one you go for, then maybe just by limiting yourself, you have to think slightly more creatively about, is that the only way I could get the effect that I wanted?
Oh.
Like there's a book, isn't there? I keep thinking, oh, I've got to read that book. A book called Avoid, which is in English, but it doesn't use the letter E, and it's a whole novel. And I mean, it's hard enough to come up with a sentence that doesn't use the letter E. But do you know what I mean? It's a kind of challenge that really makes you work and might actually engender something quite creative.
Yes, well, you're definitely definitely very creative with your musical theater, your arrangements, and your choral pieces. They're so exquisite.
Thank you.
And well, thank you. Thank you for doing this wonderful interview. I think we got to know you a little bit more, but just maybe if I could hear you talk a little bit about the Isle of Noises, which we'll be performing. What can you tell me about the composition or the text or the inspiration or
Right. So that particular piece, um, so sometimes I write pieces because I really want to set this text to music. Sometimes I'm lucky enough to be commissioned, so the commissioning group might have an idea about the kind of piece they'd like, And then sometimes I'll write pieces because there are composing competitions. You think, well, that gives me a deadline, and they want a piece of these parameters. And this was a very specific one. I think it was the Hong Kong Children's Choir or Youth Choir, and they wanted a piece that used English and Mandarin Chinese at the same time. So that's why I started looking around at these old Chinese poems. And then when I found this one that was a sort of about a mystical island and things being real but not real, that seemed to echo with the Shakespeare text,
Yes.
which is about Caliban's Island. You think, well, actually, maybe in the imaginations of Bai Hui and Shakespeare, they're kind of both imagining this mystical island. Perhaps it's even the same island, this magical place where things happen, and you're not quite sure whether you're awake or whether you're dreaming. So it was a specific call for that, which I found really interesting. But again, I might not have sort of come up with that idea if that hadn't been the terms of the competition. So I wrote it and I sent it in, and it didn't win, and I was really disappointed. Particularly because I found out they didn't have very many entries either. I was like, oh goodness me, I didn't even win a competition with any few entries. Nevertheless, I just sent it around to lots of other choir directors, and it's actually been quite popular, and it's got published. So if at first you don't succeed, like J.K. Rowling and the Harry Potter, that was rejected. Manuscript was rejected by many publishers who are now kicking themselves. I'm not putting myself in the multi-million-dollar success of Harry Potter league. But you know what I mean? Sometimes it's just not the right piece at the right time for that particular choir. But I'm really glad that that situation made me write it, because now it's out in the world, getting performances like from your choir. So I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, oh no, we're really enjoying it. It's so lovely. It's refreshing. It's so welcoming. It's so I just really like it. I like all every note and the hushing sound at the beginning and the and now this makes much more sense that it was a commission you were asked to do that, and the kind of just that mystery of the mist. And
Yes, and I think just thinking about it now, the idea of sort of trying to do two things at once makes you think of maybe, rather than just setting one poem or having a piece that does one thing. So you've got this constant kind of give and take between the two languages and the two, and not really the two styles, but you've got two things that kind of play against each other and kind of bounce off each other. Quite like
yeah,
that.
yeah, you can see the similarities.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, well, thank you very much. This means so much to me, and I look forward to doing more of your music and
Lovely.
exploring. Yeah, I would really, I really like the cat and the dog.
Yeah, that was that. Well, again, that was another sort of it was a call for a particular piece, and I thought that might fit the bill. But yeah, it's been great to talk to you. And for any choir members that are watching, then I hope you have fun with the piece. And thanks for singing it.
Well, thank you, and good luck to you. And I'll be listening to your recordings on your website.
Lovely. Thanks, Robin.
Thank you.